Joining me now is a gentleman who is probably should be, definitely is the number one contender at welterweight, but there's a lot to unpack about his situation. Remember the name. It's Belal Muhammad. Hi, Belal. How are you?
I'm good, brother. How you doing?
Good, man. Well, thank you for making some time for us. Before I get back into some of the questions you've answered before, I actually like to go in a bit of a different direction. What did you think you learned about Leon Edwards when you fought him, if anything, as it relates to what would be relevant if you fought him next time?
I think I learned a lot. We had a couple sequences in there where he shot a takedown on me, had double underhooks, and I brushed him off pretty easily. I understood distance, I understood feigning, but like for the most part, it was that whole week was kind of like chaos because it was 3 weeks notice fight. It was a fight off of me coming off of a Diego Lima fight where I took probably like 40 calf kicks. And I was like, before I took the fight, I was like messaging Paul Felder and asking him, bro, how long did it take for your leg to heal after you fought Barbosa? And we were just doing a whole lot of running around. It was like your first main event. And a lot goes into your first main event with like media pictures and stuff. So yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think that's really I can't see much from it, but the thing I could take most of is just the strength I felt in there when I was with him in those grappling exchanges.
In terms of, okay, so actually I rewatched the fight today because I knew I was going to speak to you. He did have center of the cage and you were on the back foot. Are you saying that part of what went into that was the fact that you were maybe still compromised from the previous fight?
No, I mean, from like I don't like giving excuses for nothing, but right away he took the center of the cage. Me, I'm a big game planner and a strategist whenever I fight. So like, if you've seen my recent fights, I had to come with a different strategy every single one of these fights. It was for Maya, I had to be defensive wrestling, for Wonder Boy offensive wrestling, for Luke, a lot of lateral movements. So like I study a lot of guys. With that fight, it was literally 3 weeks notice. So a lot of it wasn't strategizing. It was all right, well, we just fought a orthodox guy. Now we're going to get southpaw. And we really didn't know what we were going to see from Leon because he took 2 years off before that fight. So we didn't know what type of fighter he was going to bring. So a lot of it was just me going into the fight blind. But now we know what he's going to bring. He's fought 3 times since then, and we know what strategy we're going to bring into the fight. So like for him, if he's looking at that fight and he's taking a lot from it, underestimating me, he's in for a rude awakening. Because also in that fight, I literally lost my main head coach, Lewis Taylor. He caught COVID the week of, and he's been in my corner since the start of my career. So that week we switched it up and we ended up putting Safe Saud in our corner fight week. So it was like a last second change as well that we were trying to get that whole thing to mesh.
That is indeed a lot of craziness. All right, so help me out with understanding Leon. What do you think he's actually legitimately good at? What do you think people say he's good at, but maybe not as much?
I think what he's actually good at is distance management. He understands kicking range. He understands when he's in boxing range, and he's good at pulling fighters into his style of fight, like slowing the fight down, slowing the pace down. And he did it the second fight with Usman, he couldn't do that. Usman kept the pace up because that was Usman confident, champion, walked him down the whole time. The third fight, that was more of a hesitant Usman, and Leon did what he does. He stayed on the outside, low kicked him, body kicked him, didn't really do much, even with the Kobe Covington fight. Stayed on the outside, kicking range, low kick, body kick. There wasn't a lot of action in there. He threw less than 100 strikes the whole fight. Like for a champion and for him to say, Bully B's not exciting. I'm looking at this guy like, bro, you literally threw 50 strikes that whole fight. That was embarrassing for a guy who's considered an amazing striker. And you're going against a guy who I think has amateur striking and Kobe Covington and doesn't have no knockout power. Like you could have literally turned it up on him and embarrassed him, but you didn't, because I think he's comfortable with just settling for that win. And I think that he's at that point now where it's like, all right, I just want to do enough to win. I don't care about nothing else. As long as I hit enough to win, I'm going to do that. And we've seen it in his other fights with, you didn't finish Nate Diaz. You didn't finish Donald Cerrone. You didn't finish RDA. All these guys are 55 or lightweights. And you're talking this big game like you're some killer headshot bang. Like you had one finish in how many fights?
So is the key then in defeating a guy who's got like great distance management and, to your point, makes everyone fight at his pace? Is the key to that just a volume play? You just have to put a volume amount of all. It's a question of what, or I rather, how much offense you can put together, and then just relentless application of it. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I think just making him uncomfortable, pushing him backwards, getting in his face, wrestling with him when he wants to strike, striking with him when he thinks we're gonna wrestle, then make him to the point where, like the first fight when I fought him, he shot in on me because he was getting uncomfortable in certain situations. So just keep it doing that, like not letting him fight at his pace, letting him fight at my pace. And I don't think there's a guy in the division that can keep up the pace that I keep up. And people thought that Kobe was going to do that to him, and they were saying, "Oh, man, that's why this fight is interesting because Kobe keep that pace up," but he didn't do that at all. So when I do that, and I think that I have way more power than Kobe and more to fear than what Kobe brought to the table, I think Leon's that's why he's trying to avoid me right now because there are easier fights than me, and I think I am the toughest stylistic matchup for him in the division.
Oh, I do want to get to some more of the specifics of how you match up with him, but just one more on the takedown defense from Leon. If you take the third Kamaru fight, right, the second of the ones that he had more in the close succession, and then the Colby fight, what can we say about Leon's takedown defense? Where is it good? Where is it bad?
I mean, if I'm looking at the third Usman fight, I think it was more so Usman not really committing to any of the takedowns. He really was taking some bad shots. He was reaching a lot of the time down to the leg, and I think it was more so he was hesitant because of that head kick, and I think he came back way too soon after that knockout. Like he didn't have the same confidence as he did before. And I think even with him and Kobe, the type of takedowns they have are pushing you to the fence and keeping you on the fence and taking you down off the fence. And Leon did a good job of not backing himself up to the fence. Me, as you've seen when I fought Wonder Boy and Luke, I'll take you down in the open mat and I can take you down off the fence. I can take you down anywhere. I think I have better MMA wrestling than all these guys. I may not have the college accolades or Olympic accolades, but I understand when to shoot. I understand when I can take you down. And when I have you thinking about striking, that's when I'm wrestling. When I have you thinking about wrestling, that's when I'm striking. And I think that's the difference between me and all these other guys.
You know, I was looking at your resume today and going through some of your fights again in anticipation of this conversation. So one thing I was thinking about was you've had you've done really well overall. I mean, there's just no question about it. But I've been trying to sort of figure out like fans why some fans may not want you in that number one contender position, which I don't think is really going to end up being all that successful a lobbying effort. But just trying to wrap my head around like what is behind that. Is there anything to the idea that you had some nice wins and then maybe a loss and then a series of nice wins and then maybe a loss, and that it's harder to build momentum? Except, for example, you look at Shavkat Rakhmonov, he's got this crazy streak going, and it's just much easier to build hype. It's almost like you had to reintroduce yourself to the division, to the fans in this later stage of your career, and now it's beginning to dawn on everyone like how formidable it's actually become for you. Is that a fair assessment, do you think?
Honestly, I think it was, for the most part, like the fans are kind of like have a mob mentality, right? I think kind of like Aljo, where he got hurt in that Peter Yan fight, and then all of a sudden they switched up and they just started hating him. After I got poked in the eye by Leon Edwards, it's like everybody just started like coming at me so hard, and I was like, I got poked in the eye. The fight ended because he fouled me, and it was just weird how it just like all of a sudden switched. But then since then, it was like I'm fighting fan favorites, right? I'm fighting Damian Maia, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Gilbert Burns, Luque. Like they have a huge fan base behind them, and I'm literally like the nicest guys in the world. But like I go out there and I beat them, and people are like, I feel like it's more so people are just mad that I'm beating like their favorite fighters, because like even when I look at my style, my last two fights I haven't wrestled at all. All I've done was strike. I TKO'd Sean Brady, who people thought he was gonna walk through me. Then I beat Gilbert Burns, out striking him on the feet, who has great knockout power, and I threw over 200 strikes in that fight. So it's like I had people like, oh, all you're gonna do is wrestle, and I'm like, bro, I didn't wrestle my last two fights, and I'm consistent with my striking, and I'm getting better with my striking every single fight. So like stylistically, you can't say, oh man, it's this or that. I think it's more so I'm just beating these guys' favorite fighters.
Dude, you're the nice guy killer. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know how marketable it is to be the nice guy killer,
But literally, I'm like looking for a reason to hate all these guys or like talk trash to these guys. And it's like they're the nicest guys ever. But at least I know my next fight, when this fight happened with Kobe and Leon, I was like, at least I'm gonna have some anger toward whoever wins this fight. Like I dislike both of these guys.
In terms of I think your manager is Ali, right? You're managed by Ali.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, what discussions do you guys have about where you're sitting? How comfortable is he with the idea that you're probably the number one contender? Where are you two in relation to the conversations with the UFC in all of this?
Yeah, I mean, the last conversation we had was with Dana, and Dana said, you're next. So it's like I don't see Dana going against his word, and like Ali's always told me, like, trust me, Dana's not gonna go against his word. He said it. You're next. And even before taking that Gilbert Burns fight, it was like I talked to both of them guys, and that was the key in me taking the Gilbert Burns fight was you beat Gilbert Burns, you're gonna get the winner of this fight 100%. Because when I was lobbying for a catch weight, it wasn't because I was hurt or something like that. It was because I was fat and I was like not training, and I was like, why am I gonna put a 5-year winning streak on the line to fight a guy in Gilbert Burns who just beat Masvidal, didn't get any damage, and basically coming off a camp? Am I gonna risk that for 3 weeks notice to fight him when I don't have to? Like, I can sit and wait for something better to come and have a full camp. But they were like, you win, you're next, and that's all I needed to hear. So I think that them and the UFC, there's nothing else that I need to do to prove to them that I'm the guy. And for even myself, it's like I'm a guy who likes to stay active, and when all the top guys were coming in, when Hamza came in, I was calling for Hamza. When Gilbert Burns was in, I was trying to fight the toughest guys. And I think that the UFC knows I never said no to any of their opponents when they said it, brought a name to me. I've always tried to fight the toughest guys. So like, I'm going to be that champion that, all right, who's next in line? Let me fight this guy. There's not going to be any like arguing or let's do more negotiations. Like, I'm an easy guy to work with. And I think that should like play in my favor when they're thinking about, all right, you know what? Let's finally give it to them.
Do you have any idea about when they might want to make your fight next?
I mean, all I've known is just what Leon's coaches and his team were saying, that they were looking at UFC 300. I heard that they're going back to Manchester in April as well. So like, honestly, either one of those dates works for me. Like, I've been in the gym the last 5 weeks training. I got teammates coming up that have fights coming up in February. So I'm going to be training with those guys. Yair's fighting in New Mexico. So, Mexico City. So I'll be probably going down there to help him train. So I'm going to stay in the gym. I'm never out of the gym. I'm always working. I just need a date. And honestly, just switching a couple things up and turning it up.
Would you like to be the villain in England? Would you like to be booed? I mean, it's sort of a weird thing to ask, but it would be the kind of polarizing reaction you could really bank something off of,
Yeah, honestly, I feel like with the way my story was, with how hard and how long it's taken me to get to where I am today, I feel like that's the way the story is supposed to be told, right? I'm supposed to have that moment of winning the belt in his home country in front of his fans as they're booing me and they're hating me, but I go out there and I win, I dominate them, and then I switch them over and they start cheering for me.
In terms of the length of your win streak, again, obviously to get to this point, there's no way you ever lost any faith in the process itself. But was there any one particular moment where it was harder than others? Like to get over that particular hump, it was difficult for you?
Yeah, I think the first moment was the Luque rematch, because it was one of those before that time, it was like after the Wonderboy fight, it was a dominant fight. And I was like, all right, I'm going to get a bigger name. And they called me for Hamza, and it was supposed to be him again in London. And then Ali like called me and he was like, wait, they have to do something else because Luque and Gilbert both don't have fights and they're not going to fight each other because they're best friends. So one of them has to fight Hamza and you have to fight one of them. And I was like, bro, I don't have nothing to do with them. They're not my teammates. Like, I want to fight the biggest name. And they call me back. They're like, all right, it's going to be you and Luque. And I was just like, all right, whatever, let's go. Because I always wanted that rematch back. But once I got into that camp, it was more so mentally, it's a hurdle to get over because you got knocked out by a guy and, the first round. And I was like, what if he knocks me out again? Then there's probably going to be 0% chance that I'll ever be fighting for a title because, you lose to a guy twice. You have to wait for him to get up there. And there's lots of moving things that have to happen. But so I think that was the hardest thing to get through was that fight. And then once I got through that fight, I got that win. It was like, all right, we belong. We're going to be a champion. It's meant to be.
Do you have a favorite win of your own?
My favorite win in general was Wonderboy, because that was the guy that, I always looked up to. I was on his card when he fought at Madison Square Garden and he was fighting for the title. He fought for the title twice. And I was in camps with Tyron Woodley when he fought him, and Anthony Pettis when he fought him. So like I seen what they went through, and I was always calling Anthony Pettis whenever I have a fight, and he was like, I was like, man, who should I bring in as a karate expert? He said, bro, I don't even bring nobody in, dude. None of these guys could emulate him. He kicks harder than you think, and he's faster, and his angles are weird. So yeah, I wouldn't even do that. And I was just like so nervous for that fight because that was like that guy to really prove to myself that I'm with these upper echelon guys.
In,
My I love fighting grapplers. I love fighting wrestlers because I know I'm comfortable there. But when fighting a guy like Wonderboy who's a striker and seeing his highlight reel, and I was like, man, I just don't want to get spinning kick knocked out. That was like the scariest one for me. So when I went in there and dominated him, that was the biggest sense of relief.
how did you know like you said, your last two fights, obviously you won on the hands. The Sean Brady one was probably one of the most triumphant ones, I think, because the stoppage came in that case. Like, did you pivot to striking because it was, as you mentioned before, it was a strategic call, or clearly you also must have had confidence in your hands? I guess I'm trying to pinpoint at when you knew, okay, this is a viable path for me. I can win high level fights this way. When did that actually happen in your mind?
I was always a guy that was comfortable striking. Even in my early days, I was out striking Randy Brown when we fought the first time, and I fought in there and I outstruck Diego Lima. Like I always had it in me, but I started getting more comfortable just getting the reps in, because when I first started training and when I first got into the UFC, a lot of it we go to the gym and just spar. We go to the gym and just train, but just train just to train. Now with the gym I'm at, with the team I'm at, we train with a lot with purpose and a lot with drilling and a lot with like technique. So like I think it just opened my eyes more to like understanding the art more, and I started falling in love with analyzing and breaking guys down more. So now when I get a fight, I look for guys' weaknesses, and I was like, all right, we got to exploit weaknesses. Instead of when I first got into the UFC, it was like, all right, let's just go fight the fight and see what happens. I'll punch him until he hurts me. And if he hurts me, then I'll wrestle. But now it's like, all right, this guy's a grappler, let's strike with him. This guy's a striker, let's grapple with him. And I think that's what changed with experience.
In terms of breaking down tape, whether it's current fighters or former ones, who are some of your favorites to watch? Who are ones that you've watched and like, wow, like I didn't know you could do that. Like that's amazing to see. Who do you really like to do, and who's really impressed you?
Honestly, one of my favorite fighters to watch is Corey Sandhagen. I like love his footwork, the way he moves, the way he switches stances, the angles on it. I love watching him. Definitely watching old GSP. Just looking at the way he used jab to set up takedowns. His distance management was great with everything that he did. And my favorite fight to watch is weird, but it's Lorenz Larkin versus Jorge Masvidal. That's one of my favorite fights to watch, because there was a lot of great striking in that fight. It was good back and forth, and Masvidal was one of the early OGs that I just like to watch.
That was a Strikeforce fight, or was that a UFC fight?
No, that was UFC.
That was UFC. Okay.
Yeah.
I can't remember anymore. They both fought in Strikeforce too, but yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah. Anyone on the grappling side that kind of really is, just love what they're doing?
On the grappling side, honestly, who I like watching, especially now in the UFC, is Brendan Allen. People sleep so much on his grappling when he hits to the ground, but his groundwork is really good. And I used to train with him, and just seeing what he does, he's very underestimated. He's this young, and he's this close to being to the top, and he's just not getting the respect that he deserves, and it's surprising to me. But yeah, I like watching his groundwork. Almeida's got really good groundwork, but I don't know what he was doing in that last fight with Black Beast, just standing there laying on top of him.
Oh yeah.
Obviously Islam and Habib are two of my favorite wrestlers. Arman, I always when it's fight week, I always rewatch him against Islam to see the grappling sequences in that one too.
Are there any other plans? I know you trained with them, obviously, when you had the Fight Island opportunity, all sort of co-located. You guys all work together. Is there any other opportunity in the future to work with them?
Yeah, for sure. I was actually supposed to be going to Dagestan real soon, but I'm just trying to see when's this fight's going to happen so I can pick a date and go down there for at least 2 to 3 weeks. And I was going to take a couple of my teammates with me.
And again, just for folks who may have missed the story the last time, when you did, you really felt a leveling up process through all of it.
Yeah, 100%. Working with those guys, like mentally, they push you to a whole different level, and it's not even really crazy. Like, oh man, they're doing the scientific things or this or that. It's just hard work, and everybody in that room is a beast, and everybody in that room is just a hard round. There's not any easy rounds. Even if you have my gym now is kind of small, but you have those rounds or those days where you're like kind of sore, kind of tired, and you're like, all right, I'll go a little bit easy with you. Like with those guys, there's nobody. They don't take it a round off. They don't take it easy. They want to win every single round, no matter what. And I think it just to competition wise, it leveled me up that way. And then also just like having Habib, who like I've looked up to, like give me pointers or see little things that he sees and like, hey, I see this. And I'm just like, man, his mind is so good with the way he breaks down fights. And you wouldn't expect it because he's just been so dominant and he like dominant in a specific way, but he's very intelligent when it comes to all aspects of MMA.
So you're so close to the title. I wonder what you think of something that someone else is doing in a different division. So, Ilia Topuria has a fight coming up next year with Alexander Volkanovski, a highly anticipated fight. Really love everything about it. But interestingly, or strangely, I guess, depending on your perspective, Topuria has called himself UFC champion in his Instagram bio and even changed his picture to him with the belt. As someone who's also like very close to the title, and I know that some fighters are like very superstitious about stuff like this. What do you make of that? Like, it's a show of confidence that works for him, or how do you feel about it?
Yeah, at first I was superstitious and I was like, man, I don't even want to post a picture with me with the belt, because I don't want to like jinx it. But I was just like, because people like send me memes and stuff with that, and I was like, I don't even want to share it. But I was superstitious at first, but seeing him do it, like he's confident. I think he's a beast. Like he's really good uh, in all aspects of MMA. And I think that's going to be a great fight. And I have confidence in him winning that fight, especially off of Volkanovski coming off of a loss and a head kick knockout. I don't know how he's going to recover off of that or how he's going to come back because everybody comes back differently off of a knockout, and he hasn't lost like that and forever. So Topuria is a killer everywhere. He got great hands, great striking, and the grappling is his best aspect. So yeah, I want to see how that fight plays out.
All right, just a couple more questions for you. Really appreciate your time. First, assuming you win the title, it probably is going to be, I mean, who's to say? We'll see. But it seems like whoever's going to hold that belt is going to have a future date with Shavkat Rakhmonov. Assess for me his game. What do you like about it? What's good? What's not? Give me the scouting report on Shavkat Rakhmonov.
Yeah, I think for sure he should probably be next up. Definitely a finisher, right? He's a great fighter. He has great striking. I don't think his defense is all that great, but his striking, his footwork, and he showed his last fight that he's a strategist too. Like he understood that the easiest path to victory is to wrestle Wonder Boy, and he did that. So I think that he showed a lot of people his fight IQ with that one because everybody thought, oh, maybe he's just going to strike with him because he was tweeting out that he was going to strike with him, but he went in there, wrestled, got the finish against a guy like Wonder Boy who's tough. So it just showed you that he could win in different ways. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited for the challenge because, like I said, I see weaknesses in guys that other people don't see, and I see my path to victory with a lot of these guys. And then once it happens, people are surprised and they come at me and they tell me like, "Oh, wait, how did you know?" And like even with Kobe, when I was, it was like last year when I was saying, "Bro, he's not that good," and all it takes is somebody that's good to point it out. And now seeing him last week, how bad he looked, I think it's gonna open people's eyes to it. Wait, he was never really that good. The matchups that he was getting were perfect matchups for him. And even with the people go back to the Usman fight, that was before Usman really understood striking like he does now. I think Usman's striking is way better now. He's more intelligent with it. But when he first fought Kobe, they were just two wrestlers that were doing some kickboxing. And it was just both of them standing in front of each other doing rock'em sock'em robots. But I think the Usman now would finish the Kobe that he fought back then because he understands the jab more. He understands his distance better. And I think that Kobe, his career is basically done with now because unless he does get like, so now they'll give him. I think everybody else in the top five will kill him.
All right, and then last from me, this is something that's been obviously in the news frequently, and you have spoken about it quite frequently as well. Cards on the table, Belal. I'll just tell you, my mom is from, or she's deceased, but she is from Beirut, Lebanon. So the plight and the situation involving Palestinians was always something that was front and center in her consciousness. And having seen what's going on, the massacring in Gaza, I mean, I hate to put it on these terms so brutally, but it is what it is. And I'm just wondering, what does it do to a Palestinian American to see this stuff? And I wonder what it does to a Palestinian American athlete who is both trying to stay on the straight and narrow, but also find purpose and carry on tradition. How are you dealing with what is happening there?
Honestly, it's one of the hardest things to deal with because every day I wake up and it's like you go and you try to find the journalists that are showing the scenes of it there, and seeing what's going on there, it like it breaks your heart because you're seeing kids starving, you're seeing kids dying, you're seeing families, husbands, mothers, sons, people, real people losing their homes, losing their limbs, losing life. But you're also seeing a different side too, where you're seeing a lot of these people still with a smile on their face, still showing their faith in God and understanding that God's plan is bigger than your plan, and knowing that God has them no matter what. It gives me strength in my faith and gives me strength. And also it makes me realize how ungrateful us as human beings really are, because we wake up every day to food, water, electricity, and we're still ungrateful. We're still I want more, I want more, I want more. But these people don't have nothing, and they're still grateful that they. So it just makes me want to work that much harder for them, because me knowing that I'm carrying that flag, me knowing that my name, my family, my blood is Palestinian, I have to hold myself to a higher standard. I know that I'm fighting for something bigger, because knowing that when I win, they win. Knowing that when I win, if it puts a smile on one of their faces, that means more to them than anything in the world. And that one moment will be huge for me, more than just me winning the belt. Just seeing giving them that time to forget about what they're going through. And for the people that follow me or say to me like, "Oh man, you keep posting this, you keep posting that," it's like the Palestinian people keep dying. The Palestinian people every single day have to live through this. So those people, they don't have nobody speaking up for them. They don't have nobody to show their story, nobody to show what's happening there. So I'm going to continue to be a voice for the voiceless people, because they have nobody to speak up for them. So any chance I get, any chance, I'm going to keep shining that light.
Well, it's a difficult situation, but you've been in a lot of those, and man, you have really persevered. You've earned this one the hard way. I just don't see any way they can take it from you. I really hope you get this fight. I think you will, and I can't wait to see it. I appreciate you making some time. I appreciate you sharing part of your story, and I guess we'll see what happens in 2024. But thank you very much, Belal. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, man. Seriously.